I'm going to go back to recording now that the music session is over. I played music there for a while. I played music there for a while. Um... 3 people, including former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, injured in New Hampshire car crash, huh?
On May 29, 2015, around 1:30 a.m. on the north side of Chicago, a woman is in a car with her father on Lawrence and Winthrop in the Uptown neighborhood when she notices a newer model car traveling in reverse on Lawrence Avenue coming from Kenmore Avenue with the rear driver's side door open. The car then reversed direction on Lawrence and turned back down Kenmore. As the woman and her father reached the intersection on Kenmore, they heard gunshots and saw a man running toward the car she had just seen with the back door open. The car then reversed again and went through an alley where it disappeared. Shaquan Thomas had just been shot multiple times in the back, and he was later pronounced dead. He's better known, of course, as Young Pappy. If you don't know who this is, I can only describe him as one of the best lyricists to ever come out.
Ooh, I have ice cream. I'm gonna go get it.
Chicago.
I'll be right back.
But he's a very controversial figure, to say the least. He is, in fact, so influential that he's been dead for 10 years, and I Show Speed, who is the #1 streamer on the planet, still calls him his favorite rapper.
My favorite rapper, you probably don't know. My favorite rapper is Young Pappy. That's my favorite rapper.
In 2 years, he did more to establish his legacy in hip-hop than most rappers do in a decade. But as soon as he was hot, he was dead.
I need some
the
popcorn.
Chicago Police have a program called the Strategic Subject List. This is a list created by an algorithm that ranks the likelihood of certain people either being shot or carrying out a shooting. In a sense, you can say it predicts the likelihood of someone being murdered by how high they rank on the list. And if that sounds a bit dystopian, that's because it is. There's nothing the police can really do to protect someone on this list, and most people in the city had no idea that it even existed. But to my knowledge, it hasn't been used since 2020. But when Young Pappy was killed in 2015, he had a score of 500, which put him near the very top of the list. And the list was correct. To this day, no one knows who killed him. And while it's easy to say that just one of his enemies caught him, one rumor was always constant, that he was backdoored. Now, this is common when someone is murdered in the city, but where people get lost is when they state that one of his friends somehow set him up, because he was with a close friend, Duddy, the night he got killed allegedly, but I don't believe that. Pappy's circle was so close that at least 2 of his friends faced murder charges just defending his name. So the real question is, did the Chicago police give his location to the men who wanted to kill him? In Chicago, it's common for the friends of a guy who was murdered to say that their friend either wasn't killed by an enemy gang as a way to discredit that gang, or to say he was set up by someone if the death is too suspicious. What's not common, however, is for associates of the victim to insist that the police gave away his location to an enemy gang. Now, before you say this is highly unlikely, I'd like you to consider an important fact. This is Chicago. In 2007, a suburban police sergeant in the Chicago area, Drew Peterson, was accused of murder for hire when he tried to have the state's attorney killed while he was being accused of killing his own wife, a crime he would later be found guilty of. In that same year, Jerome Finnegan, a Chicago police officer from the Elite Special Operations Unit, was accused of trying to have another officer murdered who was supposedly going to be a witness against him in a federal investigation. And also in the same year, a former Chicago cop, Edward Leak, paid to have the limousine driver of his uncle's funeral home assassinated. And in 2014, the year before Pappy's murder, Officer Jason Van Dyke shot a man as he was walking away with his back turned, and despite the fact that the whole thing was captured on video, he lied and said the man lunged at him with a knife, a story that was quickly disproven. And the officer was found guilty of second-degree murder, but he only served 3 years before being released. Now, although there are good cops in Chicago, there are many gangs and officers in the city that pretty much do whatever they want, including these cops that in an unmarked car just pulled up and shot a teenager for talking to them, and then told responding officers that they were being shot at. And another officer in 2023 who pulled up off-duty to a block on the west side and just started shooting at a group of guys that didn't even see him, and then told responding officers that he was just defending himself when one of the guys shot back. And in case you were wondering, none of these cops face consequences for their actions. The last cop that started the shootout only left the force once he was found to be intoxicated on duty, and they still let him retire. So this is just a reality in Chicago. Some cops are simply more dangerous than gang members. And that brings us to why the police would want someone like Young Pappy dead. Now, as I said earlier, he was near the top of the strategic subject list, which, just being that high on the list alone, would make his mere presence a safety risk. His presence was such a problem for the police and surrounding community that 2 people were killed for just standing near him. In February 2014, Pappy was standing near a McDonald's at 6700 North Clark Street, along with several other teens, as Senn High School is only about 6 minutes away. Now, to say Chicago gets cold would be an understatement, and this was a cold winter day, and snow covered the ground. But regardless, a masked gunman appeared, and even though Pappy was the intended target, 4 people ended up getting shot, including one that died, a 17-year-old boy. Pappy, however, escaped the situation unharmed. Then, months later, in July 2014, as his music was starting to blow up, Pappy was standing near a bus stop around West Devon Street in Glenwood and Rogers Park on the city's north side, while Will Lewis, a Guatemalan refugee who had come to the city and made a career for himself, stood and waited for the bus to arrive. But then, a man in his 30s, who had picked up 2 teenagers to do his dirty work, spotted Pappy near the bus stop, and he handed guns to the 2 teens in his car and instructed them to kill Pappy. But they missed and ended up killing Will Lewis. So in just 5 months, 5 people were shot and 2
I'm
killed
dead.
just for being
Oh
near
my
him.
God.
And all of this heavily contributes to the theory that police, possibly just the ones in the precinct around Pappy's area on the north side, might have wanted him out the way. The police from Rogers Park to Uptown were very familiar with him, as he had
The
so
energy
many
is
mug
bad
shots
on this game
you could
now.
actually watch him age just by flipping through them. And it was well known by authorities that he was involved in a gang war, and that these shootings that hurt other people were all targeting him. So let's try to look at this from the perspective of a disgruntled unit in a police precinct, and also the strange circumstances of his death. Now, 2 huge reasons the police appear suspicious in his death is because, according to his own brother, the police stopped by his mother's house after his death and told her that they were happy he was dead.
The police came by my mama's house to her face and told her they glad. Like, yeah, they glad your son died.
And also, Pappy actually started his final day alive in jail. And I'm not sure just due to how many times he went to jail, but I believe this time he was in jail due to the aftermath of his album release party, where over 150 people were present at his house, and it caused such a disturbance that everyone ended up being arrested or at least detained. Another thing that's unclear is how much time passed between him bonding out of jail and being murdered, but it was all the same night. Now, there was a police station just 10 minutes away from where he was killed, and his last arrest, if it did have something to do with this party, it would have probably just been a petty disturbing the peace charge. So he might not have been booked into the county jail, which would have been over 30 minutes away from where he was killed. For the killers to know where he was the night he got out, it would have taken some kind of inside knowledge, whether that be a friend of the killer locked up in the same place as Pappy and then watching him get out, or a local police officer. It's not like unprofessional arrangements with the police are out of the ordinary. And as I said before in another video, a cop picking up a gang member, or even just a suspected gang member, and dropping them off in a neighborhood they weren't supposed to be in did happen. And the way the shooting of young Pappy was carried out was also very unorthodox. The witness says she saw a brand new car reversing on Lawrence Avenue, coming from Kenmore. So the car was driving backwards from the street Pappy was killed on before the shooting. And all of this is happening while the back door on the left side of the car where the shooter was open the entire time. In all my years, I've never heard of a shooting happening in such a manner. One thing that makes me believe the shooters already knew he was on Kenmore is obviously the fact that the shooter's door was already open, and he didn't appear to be worried about being caught, as he was not described as wearing a mask or covering his face at all. Perhaps I was wrong about the direction the car was traveling. I consider that the witness never stated that she saw the car going down Kenmore, only that it was reversing on Lawrence coming from Kenmore, which are 2 intersecting streets. So it's possible the car was driving down Lawrence, but missed Kenmore Avenue, so then it went in reverse, as if the shooters weren't from Uptown. Otherwise, they wouldn't have missed his turn if they knew he was there. But Uptown is another thing that's suspicious to me. His hood was in the Rogers Park neighborhood, which is about 5 miles away from Uptown. And that's not to say he didn't have any enemies in Uptown, as he's even mentioned it in one of his songs. But in Chicago, most gangs engaged in a war, especially back then, were usually all in the same neighborhood. The shootings where bystanders were hit when Pappy was a target were both in Rogers Park, not Uptown. So could it be that the police in Rogers Park informed his enemies that he had just bonded out of jail and he was somewhere in the Uptown neighborhood? Again, looking at it from the point of view of a police crew that was tired tired of dealing with Pappy. His music brought something to the north side they had never had, drill music. And with this drill music came the broadcasting of a war that Pappy only seemed to intensify, as the north side was not seen as very dangerous in comparison to other parts of the city. Even though gang wars have been going on there since the 70s with the white, Latino, and black gangs that inhabited the most densely populated part of the city. All of a sudden, you had a new generation of kids engaging in a war that far eclipsed anything that part of the city had seen since the St. Valentine's Day massacre carried out by the mob in Lincoln Park. And Pappy being near the top of the strategic subject list, the police would know that his death wouldn't be suspicious at all, and motive would be easy to establish regardless if the case was ever solved or not. In one way or another, it seemed if he didn't leave Chicago, he was going to end up dead one day. It's well known in Chicago that when a gang member is murdered in a neighborhood associated with their gang war, the case is far less likely to be solved than if that same gang member was killed in a more high-profile and upscale area of the city that has nothing to do with the gang war. If a police officer or a crew of them were to have some plot against him, this would be the perfect circumstance to get it done. And as for the police telling his mother they were happy he was gone, that doesn't necessarily mean they had anything to do with it, but it does go toward the point that the Northside police saw him as a problem on the streets. And this list he was on, the mere existence of it, is proof that the Chicago police know that these guys didn't have long to live once it gets to a certain point. So why not just let it play out? The police wouldn't have had to give away his location. It was clearly easy to find him as he had been shot at multiple times. Could it be that a situation was set up so that when he finally was caught again, it would be in an area and at a time with less collateral damage? It's unfortunate that with the immense talent he had, young Pappy lived a lifestyle that simply wasn't sustainable. Do I believe the police somehow gave away his location to people that wanted to kill him? I'm not sure. Do I think it's possible that something like that could happen in the city of Chicago? Definitely.
Yes.
But the same with most kids like Pappy. It all could have been avoided. Rest in peace to the innocent bystanders that were killed, and rest in peace to young Pappy. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Welcome to Mafia the Old Country, a gameplay experience where you're in the Mafia and in the Old Country. The title could not be more accurate. The things kick off how all good Mafia games should, with 30 minutes of working in the mines. There are children mining rocks everywhere, so either it's bring your son to work day, or these kids are property of the mining company. The only thing that isn't questionable here is the efficiency of this worksite. While taking a stroll, I spot this guy. Bro doesn't have his freedom, but still found a way to ore a farm. He might not have rights, but even in those muddy rags, he somehow looks well-read and sophisticated. The output from this mine is objectively impressive. You can't deny child labor doesn't produce results. Sicily was 5 years of looser humanitarian laws away from having a few great pyramids of its own. The workforce has a quick break to watch the volcano erupt, which is at least 500 meters away. That definitely won't cause us any major problems later. Eat, sleep, mine, repeat, except without the eating. They're kind of starving us honestly, but at least we'll be skinny for summer, and I have my good mate Gaetano to keep me company. He really is the only thing keeping me going in this godforsaken cave. Gaetano proceeds to get crushed and buried alive due to a tunnel collapse. At least we don't have to pay for an official burial or funeral, which is good, as I have no money or material possessions. I call out the site supervisor for his negligence and offer him out. I hit him with the classic fast attack combo of B, 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 before sliding away to freedom. All of the guards open fire on me, but fortunately they're about as good at building structurally safe mine shafts as they are at hitting their shots. This is a subtle nod and Easter egg to the Italian military in real life. Now a fugitive on the run, I must survive. I spot a guard with his back turned and thrust my blade into his chest, but he somehow disarms me and I fail the mission. This reminds me of those self-defense tutorials. I do what I can, but eventually I'm surrounded and all hope looks lost for little Enzo. That is until Don Teresi appears and saves me. He is my Buddha. They give me a horse and I ride back to the Teresi family vineyard with a new lease on life. Some people get to live their dreams. Other people's dreams get crushed, and sometimes people get crushed, like my friend Gaetano. I'm shown to my new room. I wasn't expecting a well-stocked mini fridge or a pillow menu, but this space is inhumane. God forbid they do a light dusting, place a bed frame or a vanilla-scented candle. No, just a torture dungeon featuring chains, broken barrels, and a cold, hard cobblestone mattress. This will really help my circadian rhythm. Thanks, Teresi family. I get changed and head out ready to seize the day. What will my first job be? Perhaps assassinating a rival main man or setting up a kissing booth for the family to practice on, but no. I have to carry bottles of fine aged
Oh my
wine.
God.
No one helps me either. They just supervise and tell me to move faster. I'm not getting paid or receiving any kind of remuneration for this labor, so this is still slavery. Bit of a horizontal move for Enzo. After carrying every item to ever exist, I look out into the wide, stunning vista that is the Sicilian countryside. It's breathtaking. I wish this was a real place. I now have to earn the respect of the Mafia by taking care of their biggest problem: more chores. As I'm shoveling horse manure and yo-yoing an existential crisis, Isabella Teresi appears, the Don's daughter. The only thing thicker than that Italian goddess is the hair on her back. I go and have a word with the Catholic priest, who I guess the Teresi family have on retainer as he just hangs out here. He seems like a nice guy. I just hope no one tells him about the mine I used to work at, because that place is the Minecraft of 19th century Italy. That cavern has had more kids die inside it than Bonnie Blue's uterus. We sit down to feast. I eat too fast, showing my lack of table etiquette like an idiot, and then I eye-bang the Don's daughter for a minute. She smiles back. And call Isabella's kitty Gaetano, because it is about to get crushed. I continue working with the Teresi family, and this mission was a little bit crazy because I had to carry crates back and forth from the truck to several destinations in a timely manner. I finished the deliveries exhausted, but ready to enjoy the annual paleo horse race. God knows I've earned smoker.
You know, this gameplay, I know where it's from. It's from Plague Tale. It's from Plague Tale Innocence and Plague Tale Requiem. And while the gameplay was good for those games, I don't think it's good for the genre.
He proceeds to say, I will be the one to race for him. Great decision, Chief. Get the guy who's malnourished, been carrying heavy crates for the last 2 days, sleeps on cobblestones, and just learned how to ride a horse earlier today. Needless to say, I do not have the
Needless to say,
hot start we were hoping for. I catch back up as we approach the end of the race, and I jostle for position. They call me Speedy in the streets and Speedy in the sheets, but unlike my sex life, I pull out before finishing and secure a fat W for the Teresi family. There's a special moment where the Don looks upon me glowing, and I know I've made him proud. Bringing such a high level of honor to the family rewards me with a new exciting job of carrying crates around. At least this time,
I actually really like this kid. This is how I feel about video games. The things he's saying.
Exciting job of carrying crates around.
I give the exciting job of carrying crates around. And like, I'm playing this game that I paid you $60 for, and you're making me move crates around like my family or whatever in the real life. And we don't really know why, developer. We don't know why you think that I need to move crates in a game. I don't need to move crates in a game. I paid you for this game. I want you to entertain me with this game. I really don't need to move this crate, do I?
Benzo proceeds to flirt with non-stop. What better way to repay the Don for quite literally saving my life than trying to bang his only daughter? The problem is she's 15, minutes away from where I live, meaning commuting to her house will be a real time sink. I can already tell she's going to be a high-maintenance lass. First, I have to open the gate, even though I'm the one holding the crate. Then, perhaps even worse, I have to fight the evil man who came here to murder us. Isabella is not combat ready, which is a huge turn-off for me. Some people's love language is words of affirmation. Mine is being mobilized.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If I'm fighting this guy to the death, I'm gonna need you to come over and hit him in the back of the head with a rock or something. Especially if you're 3 feet away. You're gonna actually have to get invested here.
Big girl. The fight gets broken up by the Teresi family, and then this geezer is like, hey Enzo, don't hit on the Don's daughter or he will kill you. New day, new me, and the first thing I do is run to the garden and shoot my shot with Isabella. Personally, my heart isn't in it due to her poor combat awareness, but Enzo is pretty whipped. Seems like a huge risk pursuing this love interest. Not because of the whole Mafia family threat angle, we're just yet to see her back, so we could be looking at a whole enchanted forest situation. On my way to work, I see this. That is disgusting. I would not eat or drink anything that was made by the grapes in this bucket. This
Why?
Bucket, however, I would savor. I ride out.
That's what wine is.
Quickly realize I've been promoted. No longer an Amazon delivery driver, I now help with actual Mafia business. Not getting paid though, so by the textbook definition, I'm still a slave. God forbid Martin Luther King was Italian. We ride around the picturesque countryside, trying to make extortion seem less like extortion and more like fun tax. This isn't a protection racket, it's a classy visit from the neighbors because we wear fine tailored suits and make our own red wine. The next happy customer is a fruit farmer who's late on his payment. The guys give me a gun, which
it's like racist.
Technically is a form of income.
Oh my god, this game is kind of racist. I don't know if it's racist, it's like Classist. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
So the chains have been shackled. As a free man ready to impress, I have a squiz around, and I'll tell you what I don't see: a shortage of citrus fruits. Someone has been lying about the quantity of their orchard's harvest. It's amazing how quickly someone will fold when you point a gun at their only living son. Parents are pathetic. You can make another one. Word gets to us that the quarry is experiencing a strike. We head over there, and yes, these men are not working at all. This is a subtle nod to modern-day Australian construction sites. I also don't see any miners here, as in 10-year-olds. My old mine never had strikes. It's just better to have a child workforce in this era, as I don't think a child can even appreciate the concept of a union or workers' rights. We talk to the foreman and come up with a management strategy where we can get the most out of our employees. We figure if I just publicly execute the biggest yapper, the others will fall into line through fear. It works well, and we get our nut. The poor guy I stabbed didn't actually die, but his friend came over to give medical treatment or perhaps read the green. I'm not sure, but I'm just happy to see the quarry up and operating again. Back at the crib, Isabella wants to go on a horse ride together, which sounds safe and fun. As we traverse the tapestry that is the rich Sicilian countryside, Enzo continues to try and lay pipe with Isabella. We do cute couple stuff, like take
Look at
photos
that
together.
donkey she's riding. And I mean it. Look at the look at the donkeys they're riding. It's like Shrek.
Lay pipe with
Oh my god, they're like literally riding Donkey from Shrek.
Isabella.
Oh my god, that's a terrible donkey. I'm sorry, it is.
That is the rich Sicilian countryside.
Those donkeys are fucking donkey. Those donkeys are donkey, you fucking donkey developer.
Try and lay pipe with Isabella.
Oh my
Do
god.
cute couple stuff, like take photos together. My girlfriend wants to take photos every time we visit a place to save the memory forever. But when she gets home from a long day at work and I've set up 4 key lights, 3 commercial cameras, and a boom mic around our bed, she gets shy. Women are impossible to read. Turns out I was just escorting the lass to her actual date with this rich guy. I'm informed by the homie that our job is to ensure their safety. So imagine my surprise when 2 hours passes via a SpongeBob SquarePants time card. We realize they've been gone for ages, so decide it's the perfect time to practice driving. Look, on one level, I understand it. When you're preparing for a driving test, it's crucial to squeeze in as much practice as possible, but maybe not when the Don's daughter is AWOL. It isn't until we hear gunshots and Isabella screaming that we decide to end the driving lesson. Right after we practice a few reverse parallel parks, as they can be tricky. I rush to save Isabella and just start murdering the men who kidnapped her. I see this as a positive, as these guys have taken the poor woman hostage and are going to ransom her back to the Teresi family. By contrast, all little Enzo wants to do is reach second base. We chase the kidnappers across the region, sometimes in a car and sometimes on a horse. I need to save this woman, but also at the same time I need to try and see her without her clothes on, because I'm beginning to suspect the Amazon forest is the second densest jungle in the world, behind only her back hair. I save the little Sasquatch and we kiss, which is cute but risky. The Don thanks me for rescuing Isabella, and then I decide to see where this woman is carrying her pot. I don't know why she's carrying it on her head like that. Small terracotta pots aren't that heavy, what an idiot. She clambers onto my head, and I look up her skirt to realize she has no lower body. Female anatomy truly is a mystery. I just wish I had a woman who looked the way this lass looks.
Oh my god.
I suppose you can't doom scroll in 1905, so you just take pride in your work. That, or she's clinically depressed. If she is just going to stand there, at least blow on the washing that's not going to dry itself. What she lacks in serotonin and dopamine, I gain in weaponry as I'm introduced to the family's private armory. Time to go gun shopping. Or for my French viewers, pistola shopping. Or for my Chinese viewers, Shaoing shopping. Or for my American viewers, back to school shopping. I meticulously create a loadout that will mean I'm ready for any situation, even if it ends in all-out mafia warfare. Isabella proceeds to ask me to carry some crates around the vineyard. This chick better be a good lay. This time she is also...
Like, I'm sorry, but all the incel comments, they kind of got to me, and now I'm gonna downvote them and leave.
Hey, what's up guys? It's Apollo here and welcome. Today we're going to do a little chat about the new DLC for Bannerlord War Sales. Now the reason I'm making this video, I usually don't do videos like this, like talking, covering. I've done it before, I'm not very good at it, and sometimes it gets me in trouble, as you know. So, I just wanted to make this because a lot of people have been asking me, am I going to play the new DLC? Of course, I'm going to play the new Bannerlord War Sales DLC, so I am excited about it. It looks pretty good. It's tough to tell, because it's mostly cinematic trailers. There are some Q&A.
That's all I need to know. And you made a 20-minute video out of it.
Now let's dive. Whoever shot into the crowd on that fateful day of October the... Like and subscribe, join the Discord, the Minecraft server, the Patreon, follow the Instagram.
The Minecraft server?
Now let's dive. Whoever shot into the crowd on that fateful day of October the 1st of 2017, firing over 1,100 rounds into the crowd is truly terrible. But based on all the available evidence, it was very clearly not Stephen Paddock. My only goal today here is to prove that, just like the many witnesses stated that night, there was not merely one man in the Mandalay Bay firing, but countless others, and also that basically everything the mainstream media has told us about that night is an outright lie. And there's a lot of ways to prove this. One could go through the over 600 police reports that were made, proving there were multiple
Oh my god, is that
One
Ellen doing the trajectory of the shooter?
could go through the over 600 police reports that were made, proving there were multiple shooters, but that would be boring and way, way too long. So let's try it my way. First though, I want it to be known that my prayers are with the victims and their families, and I sincerely ask, just like last episode, that God holds them near to him and his son for all time, and helps us shed some light on what really happened.
Yeah, as soon as you started like quoting scripture, I was like, no, I'm sorry, I'm terribly gone. Bye.
My channel is sponsored by Geology this month, which means we'll have an ad from them somewhere in the middle of today's video. Unless I've changed the title of this video by the time that you're seeing this, sort of needs no introduction. Pretty literal. I asked 20 game developers about the Stop Killing Games initiative to get actual game developer perspectives on the petition, how realistic or not the suggestions within it are, and just the general sense of things that they do or don't like about it. Now, I am covering this a bit late because, like, 2 days after I did these interviews, there was a whole new wave of drama surrounding the topic, and I just very much wanted to avoid having any part of that. But I will give you some context. So, before we get into what the devs had to say, in case you've somehow never heard of this at all and you're currently just extremely confused about what I'm talking about, in the creator's own words, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games that they have sold to customers. The website continues, an increasing number of video games is sold effectively as goods with no stated expiration date, but designed to be completely unplayable as soon as support from the publisher ends. This practice is a form of planned obsolescence and is not only detrimental to customers, but makes preservation effectively impossible. Furthermore, the legality of this practice is largely untested in many countries. Basically, the goal is to prevent publishers from being able to take video games that people have bought and paid for offline, making them unplayable. The creators are asking for a version of any game that you have bought to still be playable even after the publisher stops supporting it. The movement's EU petition amassed 1,400,000 signatures. You get
I don't know that the comedians have had that much power.
Out of your mind?
No, I'm being serious.
Joe Rogan. I'm not gonna.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, you can't separate. Like, if the movement is like, we're being censored. No, you're not. You're not.
So Mark Maron's been making the podcast rounds lately to promote his new comedy special, Panicked, a title that might also describe how the Rogan sphere is feeling right now. On a few of these shows, Maron calls out Rogan and his herd of hack comedians, not just for helping drag comedy into the gutter, but for still playing the victim long after the guy they openly backed won the election.
And seeing like Jezelnik having an issue with people like Tony Hinchcliffe, who he's saying uses profanity or just shock value comedy. What's your thoughts on that?
Before we go any further, let's take a look at what Holly's daughter was talking about when she mentioned Jezelnik.
I'm against cancel culture.
No, you aren't.
Thank you. That's my impression of a shit comic trying to get on Rogan. In 20 years of stand-up comedy, I've been asked the same questions
You're really bad. You're not very funny.
over and over and over again. The question I get asked the most by far is, Anthony, what do you think about cancel culture? Does it make you mad? Aren't you scared? What do you think about cancel culture? So, let me be clear. I don't give a fuck about cancel culture. What I am sick of are comedians complaining about cancel culture. It's not that hard. Do your job.
All right, now we can go back to Marin's response.
On that.
Well, at this point, it's lazy and sloppy and hackneyed.
Yep.
You know, to be in a fucking club where, you know, I'm walking down the hall at the comedy club, at the comedy store, and, you know, in one room, someone's doing their bit about trans people, and then I get down the hall and there's someone on stage going, well, I guess I got to do my bit about trans people. Like, no, you don't. You don't. It's hack now. I mean, you know, you guys got the freedom you wanted. You can now say whatever you want. They're defeated. The rights have been denied. The policies that you guys encouraged with your stupid material are now policy. And now, like, you know, half the people under the umbrella of anti-woke, we've lost a tremendous amount of democratic-leaning ideas and movements. So whether they knew it or not, that's what they were spearheading. So now it's reality, and you want to still keep kicking them?
I don't know that the comedians have had that much power.
Are
and
you
that
fucking
much...
out of your mind?
No, I'm being
Yeah,
serious.
Joe Rogan. I'm not gonna.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, you can't separate. Like, if the movement is like, you know, we're being censored. No, you're not. You're not. There's no constitutional censorship issue with your free speech. You say things, and in a democratic shit show of an environment, you know, like Twitter or whatever, there's cultural pushback. And I'm not saying that it wasn't. It was pretty bad in terms of, you know, people getting canceled and stuff, and I agree that was an issue, but that's a specific issue. To frame it as some sort of free speech problem was a misdirect. It wasn't. It wasn't a free speech problem. It was that people were getting cultural pushback. That is not a constitutional issue. No one was being put in jail for saying anything. That's a free speech issue.
Also, to add on Marin's point, Rogan never shuts up about free speech on his podcast, but let's be real, he doesn't really care about free speech. What he actually cares about is making sure his comedians and their cult leader, Donald Trump, can say and do whatever they want without ever facing a shred of backlash, because fragile little Joe can handle having his ego bruised. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Not long ago, Joe Rogan had Bernie Sanders on his podcast, and they ended up talking about free speech. Naturally, Bernie had the correct common sense take. Rogan, on the other hand, wasn't just wrong, he was embarrassingly wrong. As you will see, the hypocrisy can be more blatant.
Could have ever possibly saw that coming.
And what I worry about Trump is, you're right. You know, I read, it is astounding back in the 1780s when these guys wrote the Constitution, how perceptive they were.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they
Their
said...
understanding of human desires and the power and all the corruption.
Exactly.
Pretty amazing.
And they wrote that having just fought a war and won a war against the most powerful despot on earth, King of England, right?
Right.
And I think in the back of their minds were saying, all right, we just beat the King of England, absolute power. How do you create a new country which has checks and balances so that nobody ever has that power?
Right.
And I gotta say, I mean, one of the things, and there's a lot of arguments about Trump, that worries me very, very much is this movement toward authoritarianism. And going after media, suing media, taking away the authority that Congress has.
When you say suing media, are you talking about the CBS lawsuit?
Among other things, yes.
Right, but don't you think there's a real issue with what they did?
No. In this
You
sense,
don't think that there's a real issue in editing conversations to give someone an answer
Joe,
that's different than what they really answered?
Joe, I've been on 8 zillion shows in my life.
Okay.
Now, should I sue you if you ask me some stupid question that I don't like, right? Or that you do something? Should I sue you?
Yeah, but that's not what he's getting.
Well, he has
suing them
sued. He has sued ABC. Mm-hmm. He has sued Meta. He is suing the Des Moines Register because of a
the Des Moines Register.
He didn't like. All right. He is suing CBS for this Kamala Harris interview. So do I?
How am I doing in Des Moines?
How many? I cannot tell you the number of stories done about me that were not good stories.
Right.
That were dishonest stories. That's what a free press is about. You don't like it, you gotta live with it. All right? You do something, I'm not gonna see you, Jeff.
Right, but it's not that simple, right? Like, let's imagine.
It is that simple. The problem Rogan has is that 60 Minutes edited a Kamala Harris interview to make her look better. So you would assume Rogan would apply the same standard to Trump and Fox, who did the exact same thing when they interviewed Trump. The first video is the edited version, the second is the unedited version.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify the JFK files?
Yeah.
Would
I
you,
did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah. Yeah. Really.
Attorney General.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would
I
you,
did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah. Yeah. I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because you don't know, you don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
First of all, that second video doesn't just make Trump look suspicious, it makes him look downright guilty. So here's the question. Should Kamala Harris sue Fox for editing their Trump interview to make him look innocent in the Epstein files? Or should the Democratic Party sue Joe Rogan for giving Trump a softball interview and having Trump's nuts in his mouth for 3 hours? Funny how that's when Rogan would suddenly have a problem with authority figures suing media outlets. The point is, Rogan couldn't care less about free speech. What he cares about is making sure his side never gets called out for anything they say or do, because that's when he starts screaming about the First Amendment. And it's pretty obvious what Trump is doing with these lawsuits against media outlets that criticize him, which is to create a chilling effect, setting a precedent where the press censors itself out of fear of getting sued. If that works, we'll end up with a media too scared to touch Trump or his corruption. Basically the same self-censorship you would expect in North Korea. Now let's go back to Mark Maron, because Howie tried to push back by bringing up a point Ricky Gervais made on one of his shows, and the way Maron handled it was absolutely beautiful.
But my problem is you're going to start talking about anti-woke, and that's going to be your point of view. That's going to be your ideological, grounding for what you do. Okay, that's fine, but why does it have to be the same four fucking things? It's like they talk about the same shit, and I don't know a better definition of hack. I mean, after a certain point, it's like, so what juice does the word retard really have? How much shit do you have to give trans people? What is your big problem with gay people? What's your big problem with women? It's like, what is this, the fucking 80s again? And so, to me, the problem is that language evolves. Okay, we don't use the word chink anymore. Well, maybe some of them do. You don't use the word oriental anymore. You don't use the word colored anymore. Is that, in a democratic world, people learn to treat other people with respect, communities, and live with it. So this pushback, I don't know how you frame it as anything other than.
But I think it's an outward vocalization of the time. I just went and saw Ricky Gervais at the Hollywood Bowl.
What a bore.
No, brilliant. I loved it.
All right, go ahead.
Fucking brilliant.
All right.
Fucking brilliant. And he talked about kind of like this on stage. I think this new show is called Mortality. And he talked about, what we are appalled at or what we think is stupid is all about the time. And this is what I'm talking about, our cultural shift. We're not shifting it, it's shifting. He goes, listen, right now, everybody talks, the worst thing you can be is a racist. You can't, and it is right now. I mean, that's probably the number one negative.
I don't think that's true. I think that maybe
rapist.
Since you've written that show, the school
rapist.
It doesn't seem to be the most negative thing at all.
But
we have a president who's a racist, and he's very popular.
He's not identified as one, though.
Well, how much digging
Are you
do you
sure?
have to do? Get me on a computer. I can do it in 2 clicks.
No, I know, but half the country doesn't agree with you.
So it's not the biggest problem, is it?
It's if you call him that, it's incredibly.
People call him that every day.
I know, and they are hating it.
Who is?
The people that are following that side.
Well, I'm just saying that the premise is faulty.
Well, let me tell you that, but let me finish the premise. The premise is, whatever you believe is a racist move, if he lived, Ricky Gervais, lived 100 years ago and bought 100 slaves, he's an aristocrat. He's not a racist. He would be applauded for owning a plantation and being that, and because he doesn't live there.
Well, we're coming close to that again, so I still think the timing's right.
But the point is, right now, if somebody tried to buy 100 slaves and had, African American people working for them,
it's going to be Mexicans, or it's going to be white people.
No, the Mexicans are being thrown out right
That's
now.
right.
Yeah.
Also, bringing it back to comedy, not only does it get very boring and repetitive when the same topics are being discussed, but it also creates a space for lazy material. Instead of propelling genuinely talented comics with original ideas, we get people who build huge careers either on offensive jokes or by positioning themselves as anti-woke. What's ironic is that these same comics who benefited from branding themselves as anti-woke then get offended when people take issue with some of the shitty material they spew on stage. Yet they never seem to have a problem with the popularity or money that backlash helped create. Their only complaint is facing the backlash itself. Now let's go back to Howie and Mark. For some reason, Howie still tries to defend Rogan and the hack comedians in his circle, basically arguing that comedians aren't as powerful as Mark makes them out to be.
I understand what you're saying, and I look, I think you can say whatever you want. I don't care. I have no, I've been filthy. I've said all the bad things on stage. I've been doing this a long time, under the radar in a lot of ways, and I've tried everything. I've done things that were inappropriate on stage. I've said things that were inappropriate on stage, and my experience with people receiving those things and talking to people, and I've evolved the way I present comedy. I think when you talk about Jeselnik, he's just saying that, isn't there a creativity workaround that could be funny without creating this juice that just comes from using words that used to be kind of triggering and are less now because the dominant cultural force is now slightly fascistic and leaning towards alienating those voices. So now that we've crossed that hump into what we are now, aren't you just kicking someone when they're down and just being a hack? Because there is no real progressive pushback anymore. They've won, right? So that side has won. They've won culture, they've won the presidency, and now you have a lot of frightened people that believe in what was once democracy in terms of respecting all types of people. That's kind of gone. So do you continue along that track of being the victim of some liberal conspiracy when it clearly is over? I don't know. So maybe I stand with Jeselnik.
Yeah, my understanding of what he was saying was less about politics and where we are as a culture and society right now, and more about the art of comedy. And to him, it's not comedy just to say something shocking.
That's right. So you work around it.
Yeah.
Be more creative.
Yeah.
Don't be a hack.
But you also are giving comedy a lot more power than I think it has in our society.
I think that might have been true a few years ago, but I don't think that's true anymore. Because with what you're doing now, what you're doing here, once old-time show business, look, if you connect all this anti-elitism, anti-Hollywood talk to right-wing ideology and propaganda, what has happened now is that old-time show business is anemic. It's dead.
Yes.
And so, what's happened is, and in a good way, entrepreneurial way, which is, sort of, your bag, is that, you can start your own show business and you can find your own audience.
Right.
And, that all, seemed pretty good. But if a lot of, and these are comments, if the audience that you build has decided they know what real comedy is, they know that woke people suck, they know that, whatever, scientists are liars, they know that whatever the ideological foundation of that audience is.
What?
Comic at the tip of that iceberg, and you're championing that just by being funny, and then skirting the responsibility by saying yeah, I'm just a comic, my fans are my fans. Then I think you're being disingenuous or stupid. I do think that comedy or certain comedians have a great deal of cultural weight now.
So I think Mark nailed it. Rogan, for example, has one of the biggest podcasts globally, so the impact he has not only in the US but worldwide is quite insane. To argue that comedy and comedians aren't powerful and don't have the ability to influence, for example, a presidential election, is, to put it nicely, a naive take. That being said, I think things might be changing, and Mark Maron's tour against the Rogan sphere is actually working. The reason I say this is because if this interview between Howie and Mark had taken place 5 years ago, the person who would have received the most backlash would have been Mark for daring to criticize Rogan and his herd of hack comedians. But it seems that if you look at the comment section, the person who received the most backlash was not Mark. In fact, it was Howie for trying to defend the Rogan sphere. For someone without a spine, it's pretty impressive how Howie sits upright. Howie says comedy had no power. Why did Trump and Vance make the rounds on comedy podcasts then? Not sure what world Howie is living in if he thinks popular comedians, particularly in the podcast space, didn't have an outsized impact this past election, and on culture in general. Maron is making Howie look like a real fool. So, at the end of the day, Rogan and his herd of hack comedians are terrified of anyone actually calling them out. They wrap themselves in free speech like a security blanket, but what they really care about is making sure they and their cult leader can say whatever nonsense they want without facing even the tiniest consequence. Meanwhile, Mark Maron is out here doing the hard work, calling out hypocrisy, defending real comedy, and exposing the Rogan sphere for the shallow, lazy, anti-woke circus it is. And the funniest part, the world is finally starting to notice. 5 years ago, criticizing Rogan invited backlash. Today, defending him invites ridicule.
It's the Democratic Party trying to employ people to actively propagandize to an audience that thinks they're getting real information, like real, unvarnished truth from independent content creators online, and the only thing that they're doing is basically the same regurgitated CNN talking points that political consultants deliver in mainstream news. And that's what's really up about it. But of course, the first story that I'm going to start off with before we get into the special report on the mass shooting that took place in Minneapolis today is actually one that was written by a friend of the show and friend of mine, Taylor Lorenz. You might like her takes, you might hate her takes, you might think she gets a little crazy on the social media platforms from time to time, and turns out she had a piece for Wired Magazine, a deep dive into a dark money group that is secretly funding high-profile Democratic influencers. And I obviously have a lot of additional information to offer as someone who is a progressive content creator, a socialist influencer, if you want to call it that, who has been approached in the past as well. So I can give you guys a little bit more details on this kind of thing too, on top of what she wrote. And there's obviously a bunch of stuff that she was not able to add into this piece because, you know, it would have been far too expansive. An initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online offers influencers up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. All they have to do is keep it a secret and agree to restrictions on their content. In a private group chat in June, dozens of Democratic political influencers discussed whether to take advantage of an enticing opportunity. They were being offered $8,000 per month to take part in a secretive program aimed at bolstering Democratic messaging on the internet. Wait, what? $8,000 a month honestly seems like a small payout if they actually supposed to be high-profile influencers. The economy really is falling apart. Are you kidding me? $8,000 a month is an incredible amount of money for whatever their deliverables are. What the do you have $8,000 a month that you have to spend? we're talking about like up and comers, you know what I mean? We're talking about people that just like get you know, like $8,000 a month is life-changing money for a lot of people, for virtually everyone. You're talking about almost $100,000 a year. That's, you know, that's an incredible amount of additional revenue that you're going to be able to generate. But the contract sent them to Chorus, the nonprofit arm of the liberal influencer marketing platform, came with some strings. Among other issues, it mandated extensive secrecy about disclosing their payments and have restrictions on what sort of political content the creators could produce. In their group chat, influencers debated the details. Should we send a joint email with all our email addresses, or are we just going to send things separately and hope they change everything for everyone? Lorenzo, a non-binary creator in Columbus, Ohio, with over 884,000 TikTok followers, asked the group. Some joked about collective bargaining. Any Newsies fans in here? Eliza Orland's a public defender and reality TV star known for her appearance on Survivor, posted in the group. We're a union just by saying so. The influencers in the chat collectively had at least 13 million followers across social media platforms. They represented some of the most well-known voices in online posting in support of them.
Ah, I can fire! I can switch, I can do anything! This guy showed up on top of me! Where did he come from? No warning, nothing!
Contract, like, you win some, you lose some. A guest influencer named Perry, who posted under the handle Women in America, responded later in the thread. I also think there's at least 4 other...
Where'd you come from, motherfucker? I took that mountaintop. I didn't see anybody for 300 meters. Where the fuck did you come from, cheater-ass cocksucker? Fuck you, piece of shit!
Aaron Parnas, a Gen Z... Oh my god, Lev Parnas' son, Aaron Parnas, was a part of this. A Gen Z news influencer who has been called the Gen Z Walter Cronkite has been lauded in legacy media outlets, posted in the chat. They aren't going to modify it anymore. Seems like a take it or leave it. Parnas declined to comment. I believe we're in stage 5. Acceptance, Perry responded. Creators began signing on to the deal. For years, Democrats have struggled to work with influencers. In 2024, President Joe Biden's White House snubbed several prominent content creators after they lightly criticized the administration over its policies on climate change, COVID, Gaza, and the TikTok ban. Content creators who challenged Kamala Harris, including Hassan Piker, a well-known influencer on the left, were similarly unwelcome at campaign events. After the Democrats lost in November, they faced a reckoning. It was clear the party had failed to successfully navigate the new media landscape, while Republicans spent decades building a powerful and robust independent media infrastructure, maximizing controversy to drive attention and maintaining tight relationships with creators despite their small disagreements with Trump. The Democrats have largely relied on outdated strategies and traditional media to get their message out. Now Democrats hope that the secretive Chorus Creator Incubator Program, funded by powerful liberal dark money group called the 1630 Fund, might tip the scales. The program kicked off last month, and creators involved were told by Chorus that over 90 influencers were set to take part. Creators told Wired that the contract stipulated they'd be kicked out and essentially cut off financially if they even so much as acknowledged that they were a part of the program. Some creators also raised concerns about a slew of restrictive clauses in the contract. This is so insane, bro. What are we doing? What are the creators doing? What are the liberals doing? What's wrong with you? Why the fuck? Dude, first of all, this is the type of we yell at Tim Pool over because they're getting it from fucking Russia, okay? This is the type of shit we yell at Ben Shapiro over because they're getting money from the same exact funding groups that fund the Republican Party, like the Wilkes brothers and shit. How the fuck are these guys just like running around being like, the Democrats are awesome, liberals are great, Gavin Newsom is hot, I want him to blow my back walls out, I think he's the next president, and then you turn around and you're getting a fat bag from the Democratic Party through shadow donations that you're not even disclosing. What the unimaginably unprincipled. It's also a demonstrable failure. This is what's so annoying about it. That's why I'm out here giving free ball. Okay? What do I always say? Free ball is free. Okay? You want to know what to do? You want to reach out to the youth, young men? I'm giving it out for free. There's also working examples of it. Zohran Mamdani is a working example of it. Okay? But these guys don't want that. They don't want to change their policies. What they want is to be able to manipulate people into loyalty to the Democratic Party without any sort of real changes in the way that they are alleviating people's economic hardships. But it now turns out that when people come in here and yell at me with DNC talking points and I say, show me the pay stubs, it turns out some of those motherfuckers do have pay stubs, except their fans don't, and their fans are deluded into thinking that these guys are actually telling them the truth. But it turns out they're actually making you annoyed at the left at the behest of the Democratic Party because that's what they're predisposed with. Holy Not that you'd ever accept this, but it just goes to show how principled and consistent you are. This is a roundabout big W for you and vindication for the DNC shit. I'm gonna be honest with you. This group never even entertained reaching out to me. I think they were smart enough not to come to me, or if they did, I didn't hear about it. I'd have to ask my manager, but I don't think this was a thing. Anyway, influence including the communication about the program and in some cases onboarding session for those receiving payments from the 1630 Fund, including, oh my God, Olivia Giuliana, the centrist Gen Z influencer who spoke at the 2024 Democratic National Convention. Lauren Piretra, a former Playboy executive turned political influencer who hosts a podcast for Occupy Democrats. Barrett Adair, a content creator who runs American Girl Doll themed pro-DNC meme account. Suzanne Lambert, who is once called herself a Regina George liberal. Ariel Fodor, an education creator with 1.4 million followers on TikTok. Sandra Jennings, a former TLC reality star and older brother of trans influencer Jazz Jennings. David Pakman, who hosts an independent progressive show on YouTube covering news and politics. David, you've been in this game for so long. What the f are you doing? Lee McGowan, who goes by the online moniker Politics Girls, and dozens of others. The first two declined to comment. The rest did not respond to requests for comment. According to copies of the contract viewed by Wired that creators signed, the influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationships with Chorus or the 1630 fund, or functionally they're being paid at all. I don't even know how this is allowed. How is this not a violation of numerous points of regulation? I mean, this is a FTC violation, and not only that, but it's like you have to disclose when you have an ad, and you have to disclose if it's a political ad, especially. Actually, that's not true. I don't think you have to disclose if it's a political ad, but it's already, I guess technically not. Yeah, you don't have to actually put hashtag ad if it's a political ad, because that's already clocked. Like, it's those payments are all public. You just have to sort through the data. So I guess it wouldn't be an FTC violation at all. One of the examples I'll give you is a Progressive Victory, right? They approached me a million times, but because they were like aligned and affiliated with Destiny, and because they were like being run by Brianna Wu, I was like, I'm not touching that. And there's some nice people that work there, some people who are truly ambitious, but what it turned into was a slush fund for Destiny's best friends. And I didn't touch it with a 10-foot pole because I was like, I can't be aligned with something like this because of the people that I am, the people that are running this, and also the people that they think are good voices to uplift, the people that they're willing to pay to do political advertising. For me, I was like, that's not something that I'm interested in. All of the people who are pro-Israel and all the people who are pro-Destiny unironically got paid. Yeah, you were right. Key, search, disclose. Yeah. She says she takes their talking points and puts them in their own voice, and she always discloses when she's being paid. When it comes to hawking commercial products or sharing financial advice, federal rules require influencers to disclose when they're being paid. But in a rulemaking last December, the Federal Election Commission voted against similar requirements for influencers spreading political messaging, which is insane, by the way. Why the would you not have to disclose that? Are we kidding? But yeah, in the United States of America, if you are a political operative, you do not have to disclose that you're getting paid to say certain things, which blows my mind. I'm a professional fundraiser. Someone who is collecting checks from a campaign will show up on that campaign's FEC report. Yeah, exactly. That's precisely the reason why I said, like, because it's public on the back end, technically they can get away with saying, oh, you don't have to disclose it, which is bullshit. If it's a super PAC, it can be disclosed, or it could say it's paying some other PAC that's paying some other PAC, etc. The real dark money, though, is the 501c3s and the 501c4s, since they do not have to report. Exactly. It's so f***ed up. Ugh. And it's so goddamn annoying. Anyway, does the liberal influencer believe to have been approached by Chorus about 1630 fund financing opportunity this spring? They were told that Chorus appreciated the work that they were doing online and were asked if they'd be interested in being part of the first cohort of a new program that Chorus was running to help expand their reach and impact, creators told Wired. But following the initial outreach, many creators expressed concern about some stipulations. According to the copies of the contract viewed by Wired, creators in the program must funnel all bookings with lawmakers and political leaders through Chorus. Creators also have to loop Chorus in on any independently organized engagements with government officials and political leaders. If I want to work with another politician, I have to fully collaborate with them, said one creator who was offered the contract but ultimately declined to take it and asked not to be named. If I get Zoran and he wants to do an interview with me, I don't want to give that to them. Creators in the program are not allowed to use any funds or resources that they receive as a part of the program to make content that supports or opposes any political candidate or campaign without express authorization from Chorus in advance of writing for the contract. The contracts reviewed by Wired prohibit standards of partnership disclosures, declaring that creators will not publicize their relationship with Chorus or tell others that they're members of the program without Chorus's prior express consent. They also forbid creators from disclosing the identity of any funder and give Chorus the ability to force creators to remove or correct content based solely on the organization's discretion if that content was made at a Chorus organized event. God damn, this shit is so ass, bro. It's so, I mean, Republicans are gonna make mincemeat out of this. Actually, I don't know, they're probably too busy fucking talking about how woke the Cracker Barrel was and doing victory laps over how not woke it is now or some shit to actually pay attention to this stuff. But like, they used to make a mountain out of a molehill with like any kind of DNC pay stubs that like Harry Sisson got. So this is the big Monty. This just basically shows exactly where we're at. There are some real great advantages to housing this program in a nonprofit. Graham Wilson, a lawyer working with Chorus, said to creators on a Zoom call reviewed by Wired, it gives us the ability to raise money from donors. It also, with the structure, it avoids a lot of the public disclosure or public disclaimers, you know, paid for by blah, 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 that you see on political ads. We don't need to deal with any of that. Your names aren't showing up on like reports filed with the FEC. Wilson did not reply to a request for comment. The Federal Election Commission also declined the comment. The goal of Chorus, according to a fundraising deck obtained by Wired, is to build new infrastructure to fund independent progressive voices online at scale. The creators who joined the incubator are expected to attend regular advocacy trainings and daily messaging check-ins. Those messaging check-ins are led by Cohen on rapid response days. The creators who have to attend at least 2 Chorus newsroom events per month, which are events Chorus plans often with lawmakers. Elizabeth Dubois, an assistant professor at University Research Chair in Politics Communication Technology at University of Ottawa, who has researched the ways influencers are reshaping the U.S. political system, says that we are seeing influencers being pulled into these dark campaigns or shadow campaigns where the legal aspect is murky at best. Sometimes it is actually clear that influencers are being used to, for example, evade spending limits, she says. I think that we need to remember that for democracy to thrive, we do need transparency around who is paying for political messages. Keith Edwards, a Democratic content creator who has skyrocketed to fame on YouTube since starting his channel last year, was not invited to be a part of the program, but believes that the way it's structured seemed predatory. He says that he would never agree to take part in a program that was run in secret or wouldn't allow him to disclose funding. What I don't understand is, why wouldn't you just donate to creators directly who have already built something and just need to put gasoline on the fire, says Edwards. Democrats at least understand that the internet exists now, so that's good. But they still think influencers are just there to do a terrible direct-to-camera interview that no one watches rather than just treating us like another form of media. The influencers offered the funding were given just days to sign the contract, which was essentially presented on a take-it-or-leave-it basis. At least one cohort was specifically told they could not have their lawyers redline it. In that group chat, formed to discuss contract negotiations, some creators discussed a clause prohibiting the disparagement of other creators. Not being able to criticize anyone else affiliated with Chorus felt restrictive to some, according to text messages posted to the chat. Eventually, the creators in the group chats agreed to drop the issues they had. I don't think Chorus is out to screw us. Orleans, a creator who was offered $8,000 per month, said in the group chat. Some influencers for the Chorus Creator Incubator program were offered as little as $250 per month, according to one creator who declined to accept the deal, while others were offered memberships into the Amplifier cohort, which provides up to $8,000 per month. Bro, if you're taking a bag for $250, it's the worst. You're like, I'm sorry. If you're literally selling out whatever like ambitions you had as a political commentator for $250 a month, you are not in the right business. At least the people that were selling out for $8,000, that's like life-changing money. $250 a month, and you're gonna be a mouthpiece for a shadow organization that has this much restriction on your life? What the See, this is the problem. A lot of people don't understand. The issue here is like, if this is your job, this is your goal, if this is your career ambition, if you want to become a political content creator, if you want to be a political commentator, you have to have a unique worldview. You have to have some things that you truly believe in. You can't be a
a hatchet man. Yeah, these are hatchet men. They suck dick at politics.
In recent years, his website notes that issues supported by the organization include economic equity, affordable health care, climate solutions, racial justice, voter access, and other essential social change goals. The organization was founded in 2009 as a liberal response to the conservative dark money groups and organizations like the Koch network, and under Trump, it has soared. In 2018, the 1630 Fund provided $141 million to more than 100 left-leaning causes in order to bolster Democratic support during the midterms, according to a tax filing obtained by Politico. In 2020, the fund distributed more than $400 million, Jesus Christ, according to the organization's public tax filing, which Politico said was used in efforts to unseat then-President Donald Trump and the Republican Senate majority. In 2022, the 1630 Fund spent $196 million backing state ballot measures on abortion rights heading into the midterms, according to NBC. Just 4 donors accounted for close to 2/3 of the fund's revenue in 2023, according to its tax filing. The largest donor gave the group $50.5 million, with others donating $21 million, and $13.6 million. The 1630 Fund, which is not required to disclose its contributors, has for years been a major funding source for liberal and progressive causes and groups, including those that spend in elections, says Walker Davis, a research director for the open government group Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Though their recent tax returns indicate that they've always pulled back from the eye-popping sums they raised and spent in 2020, the organization is still one of the top spending politically oriented groups, oriented nonprofits in the country. Chorus, which is described in contracts reviewed by Wired as a project of the 1630 Fund that handles operations for the Creator Program, launched in November 2024 as a nonprofit arm of Good Influence, a for-profit influencer marketing agency aimed at helping content creators connect with social good campaigns. Good Influence was founded in October 2020 by Stuart Perlmutter, the former comms director for the Representative John Yarmouth of Kentucky, seeing an opportunity after Kamala Harris's loss last November. Perlmutter co-founded Chorus with the Democratic influencer Brian Tyler Cohen. Ain't no fucking way. Brian Tyler Cohen, who was over 4.6 million subscribers on YouTube and leads messaging check-ins with the creator cohort on rapid response days. According to records reviewed by Wired, Chorus claims that its initial creator cohort has a collective audience of more than 40 million followers with more than 100 million weekly viewers, and that the organization has hundreds of creators signed up and ready to amplify messaging. I've spent most of my career researching right-wing media. Also, Brian Taylor Cohen is another friend of Destiny, isn't he? Again, I am noticing that like a lot of these guys who are invested in but whether it's for genuine ambition and good reasons because they truly believe that the Democratic Party is the savior of mankind, or whether it's like a cynical way to try to amplify your worth within the confines of the Democratic Party machine, or if it's just to make money, regardless of whatever those motivations are, it's very clear to me that these guys have one pattern. They don't step outside of the line when it comes to whatever the Democrats are communicating, which is something that I've always wondered about, because I'm always like, how the are you going to be an independent content creator, an independent political commentator, and never actually criticize the Democrats? Like, what is going on? Show me the pay stubs. This is what I used to say all the time. If you remember, if you recall, one of the things I used to always say whenever motherfuckers would come in here and be like, oh, I'm going to defend the DNC. You're wrong. It's the left that did this. I'm going to defend the DNC. I'd be like, show me the pay stubs. It turns out there are pay stubs. Not for you if you are a fan of any of these content creators. You've just been deluded. But these guys do have some pay stubs. So this makes a little bit more sense. I will also say, however, that the other thing that I've noticed here is that they are noticeably absent from the conversation on Gaza. This is a major issue. It's a major issue that was almost entirely propped up by social media and independent sources. Whether it be on the ground Palestinians who are filming their own demise, filming their own genocide, bravely, if I may add, or whether it be those videos that are being amplified by independent media content creators who see right from wrong, who have a conscience and decide that this is unconscionable and actively speak out against it. If you are an independent content creator, if you're in the media, you're not going to speak on it. We know this already, right? But if you're an independent content creator and you're silent on this, if you're an independent content creator and you're silent on one of the biggest
I've never been
issues
silent on
of
it.
our time, then it's very obvious that there's like most likely a financial motivation here, a financial imperative here. My mother-in-law is a big-time Gen X liberal, and we'd regularly get into debates about Genocide Joe that always ended up with her begging me to vote for blue no matter who. She obsesses with Aaron Parnas and Brian Tyler Cohen, and now I got to debate her on this. Christ, I'm exhausted. What do you mean? This is not a debate. You can just like accurately tell her that like there's a reason why the information that you're getting might not necessarily be the full scope of reality, and there's obviously a financial imperative associated with that. This is like the easiest thing to communicate to people. This is the easiest dub of your life, not to like dunk on your mom or anything like that, but the reality of the matter is when you have instruments of the party making these ridiculously stringent rules that straight up tell you what you can and can't say, and they pay you for it, then all of a sudden you're not a political commentator. You're not an independent voice at all. You're simply a mouthpiece for whichever slush fund that exists. In this circumstance, it's just like Chorus. I don't even think that they had a lot of credibility to begin with, but now they definitely don't have credibility at all. This basically proves why so many of these liberals online, that's why I always tell you, like, don't listen to the fucking liberal voices on TikTok or on YouTube or whatever. They do not reflect the broader sentiment of the population. The broader base of the Democratic Party, for example, is literally 92% on the fuck Israel side, okay? 77% of Democrats acknowledge that Israel is doing a genocide. 77%. None of these guys actually talk about that. None of these guys actually openly state it. How the could you be an accurate reflection of the Democratic Party's base if you are speaking zero moments about the one singular issue that Democrats have a supermajority opinion on? Democrat voters, I mean. That's it. I don't think this is a purity test. This is not like a purity spiral. This is just like straightforward paid propaganda. This is paid shilling. A paid shilling that unironically creates that same closed circuit that forces Democrats to not actually look at what the real issues are and actively choose to solve them. And instead, it's the Democratic Party trying to employ people to actively propagandize to an audience that thinks they're getting real information, like real unvarnished truth from independent content creators online. And the only thing that they're doing is basically the same regurgitated CNN talking points that political consultants deliver in mainstream news. And that's what's really f***ed up about it. They think that it is actually not the Democrats, the party itself, that is the problem. It's the voters that are not invested enough in harm reduction narratives and whatever the f*** motivates people to go out and vote for the Democrats. This is devastating because it's also consistently led to the Democratic Party's demise over and over again and led to 2 major defeats against a incompetent charlatan fascist like Donald Trump. It's completely unacceptable. And this is straight up a part of the problem. This is a major part of the problem because this is emblematic of the issue that is at the core of the Democrat Party. An inability or a lack of interest in actually listening to the demands being made by voters, which is undemocratic inherently. This is anti-democracy. This is anti-democratic process. The fact that they are, instead of like taking a cold hard look at all of their failures in the aftermath of this massive defeat against Donald Trump again, instead of looking at that and maybe changing the way that they operate, the fact that they are still saying, no, we just gotta like dunk on the vote, we gotta influence the voters better, is in showing the face stuff. I think that this method that the Democrats are deploying here by using like Brian Tyler Cohen and all these other people, especially in this like incredibly shady way, is only effective if the Democrats...
Oh yeah, 2 tonight, baby! Yeah!
If the Democratic Party unironically decides that they are the Medicare for All party, if they decide that they are the anti-Israel, anti-genocide party, for example, it sounds laughable to even bring this up because you're like, they're never going to do that. But if they were to do that, and then they pumped all of these content creators who will be loyal soldiers that defend the Dems regardless, then they could actually make an impact. Otherwise, this is no different than having $1 billion that you burned with messaging bad policies and putting bad policies in front of people and then losing the election in the same exact way that they lost the election last time.
(1865), the United States.
Go back.
To quote Jane Austen, it is a truth universally acknowledged that the outer world is fucking terrible. I think that's hypocritical given how much I've been glazing Fallout 1 and Bloodlines, but the fact Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky made a couple of good games 20, 30 years ago has nothing to do with the products they're pushing out today, because that's all they are, shallow imitations, products. The Outer Worlds is a soulless game, and as I've been banging on about for years, hollow in the same way as the corporations it tries so hard to parody. If you were to ask a computer to approximate a video game, every possible design trope, and what the gamers really want nowadays, this is the kind of thing you'd expect to see. The comparison to AI is fitting because the game is so utterly sterile, devoid of personality or charm, and shows that Obsidian, Tim Kaine, Leonard Boyarsky, and everyone else involved with flogging this joke of a game completely lack self-awareness. All they did was produce the same kind of product they were trying to parody. The fact it traded on the Bethesda bad hype train at the time, when the only thing it deserves is to be forgotten with the rest of the shovelware in a bargain bin somewhere, or how the game tries to veil itself in irony and a wink at the camera, it's frankly pathetic. The open world feels like a soundstage with everyone half-heartedly trying to play their part. Bandits have no reason to exist. They're literally fodder for gameplay purposes and stand literally just down the road from settlements. Loot is recycled down to the same model across weapons. It is the laziest possible game design of number go up. The companions are a joke, and don't even get me started about the story or how it tries to do the New Vegas thing right at the very end. But it's okay, guys. It's New Vegas in space, right? Right? One of the biggest copes to emerge in the last decade or so is the re-emergence of developers that once made good games and the idea that they will do so again. You can blame Kickstarter for this, and as I've been over many times before, Pillars of Eternity was one of the big stories to come out of this period. I think there's a direct correlation we can draw with the rise of remake culture as well. The idea that more and more of the industry has become creatively bankrupt, and like some kind of consumerist Ouroboros has begun to eat itself. What is happening at the moment is that because audiences are so desperate for good,
I like this guy a lot.
Storytelling or art, they've unconsciously fallen into a trap of putting their faith in people who are, frankly, well past their time. If there's any takeaway from this video, it's this: one person doesn't make or break a studio or game. That is ignoring the circumstances, the entire team behind them, and the time or place in which it was made. It's nostalgia bait to a T, not of products, but people. Star Citizen is fascinating and really the best or worst example we could point to. Space Sims and the idea of trucking across the one-to-one scale of a galaxy doesn't exactly excite me, but Chris Roberts obviously had a huge pull in building what is the biggest sunk cost fallacy in gaming history. Star Citizen has been going for a decade at this point, and despite what its fans may delude themselves into thinking, after paying 10,000 real dollars for a ship cosmetic, it is still little more than walking around a cinematic render in Unreal Engine. You're welcome to disagree, but I'd encourage you to maybe finish writing your comments when the next $100 million pours in. I don't fault the developers themselves per se. In many cases, it's clear this comes from a genuine place of passion and wanting to make the best game they can, but a hope and a prayer doesn't really help translate it into reality, does it? Let's look at probably the most egregious example, and the one I personally found most disappointing, next. Other Side Entertainment. Unless you're really into classic PC games or immersive sims, you probably haven't heard of Looking Glass Studios, also known as Blue Sky Productions, but the impact this studio had on game design can be seen everywhere in the industry today. Thief the Dark Project essentially created the stealth genre, and still to this day was so far ahead of its time in how it used sound cues and lighting that gaming now takes for granted. System Shock was the first person spin on the Metroidvania and introduced the legendary sound work of Eric Brosius and Terry Brosius as one of the best villains in gaming, Shodan. The sequel, made in collaboration with this little-known developer named Irrational Games and Ken Levine, is a landmark for good reason. It standardized so many things we take for granted nowadays as a pioneer of the FPS RPG hybrid, and additions like audio logs. To make a long story short, as is often the case with any creative industry, Looking Glass had once-in-a-generation talent, but not the financial success to last. When it went under...
What? I couldn't even get the fucking bounce pad down! He wasn't in LOS! What was this? Where did this guy come from? No warning, nothing. Where was this guy? No shots, no nothing. Piece of shit developer alert! Piece of shit developer alert! Where? Piece of shit cocksucker developer alert! Where was this guy? Give me a fucking warning. I'm not a mind reader. He showed up on top of me. Where the fuck did this guy? Where are these guys? I scanned 360. There was nobody here. What the fuck are you talking about? So dumb.
And under-delivering. If you haven't heard of Ultima Underworld, it was so important and successful at the time, it literally inspired
BRB.
Doom and countless dungeon crawler sandbox-style games that would follow in its wake. Simply having 20, 30 years of experience behind you doesn't mean anything though, because its spiritual reboot, Underworld Ascendant, was a buggy, uninspired mess. Yet another Kickstarter failure that had about as much impact as a pillow fight in space. What really gutted me though was the worst case of blueballing ever in the catastrophic development around System Shock 3. At least we'll always have this render of Showdown, but Warren Spector,
System Shock
Terry
3.
Brosius, and all the other clearly talented people involved doesn't mean that necessarily results in a great game, or anything apparently, since the IP has since been bought up by Tencent, if that wasn't depressing enough. Finally, we come to Archetype Entertainment and the promise of Exodus. I really hope this game
What's
is
wrong with
amazing.
Tencent?
I want to believe it
I'm
will
kidding.
be. But just because James Olin or Drew Karpyshyn are involved, that doesn't mean anything by itself. If you don't know who they are, James Olin was the creative director behind basically all of BioWare's legendary run of games, Baldur's Gate, Knights of the Old Republic, and of course, Dragon Age Origins. Karpyshyn was the lead writer on many of these as well, although I won't ever forget what he did to Revan and the Exile in that crappy MMO. He's clearly very talented. The problem, as we've seen already, is whether this is going to translate into a game that is actually good by its own merits. Game development doesn't exist because of rock stars. John Romero with Daikatana, Peter Molyneux with literally anything, Todd Howard working on IPs that he had no hand in actually creating. One person does not determine success any more than the idea that because someone once made a good game, everything they touch turns to gold. Wizards of the Coast as the financial backing behind Archetype sounds nice in theory. Everyone loves a good underdog story, and the idea that because BioWare devs are now out from under EA's thumb, there will be this big heroic comeback that restores faith in the industry now that Mass Effect and Star Wars are dead and buried. From what we've seen so far though, it just looks average. Maybe it's just me, but a cinematic third-person shooter in the vein of Mass Effect is great in theory. Maybe it will be more inspired and the team really is just dropping teasers for now, but there are warning signs already. It's already trying to be across media franchises with books, the secret level episode and overly flashy visuals, where it should just be focusing on the game itself. Like I said, I really hope the game is going to be a masterpiece, but if the point of this video hasn't made it clear already, you should keep your expectations low. Just because members of Team Silent are involved, it still resulted in the remake, or even worse, Nightcry. Just because Shinji Mikami was involved, it still resulted in The Evil Within. Just because Itagaki was involved, it still led to the edgiest game ever, Devil's Third. Just because David Gator was involved, it still led to Anthem. Just because Mark Darrah was involved, it still led to Veilguard. Just because Amy Hennig was involved, it still led to Forspoken. Just because Hideo Kojima is involved, well, just look for yourself. One person doesn't make the game, the whole studio does.
This was good. What else has he done? 8 down, 12 up. Eight down, 10 up. What? Come on! What was this? I died instantly. Oh, come on. Alright. I'm going to go to bed, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to bed. It has been a long time now. Been recording for a long time. And I'm going to stop. Stay away from game dev. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, stay away from game dev. You're not too good at it.
Alrighty. I've been cranking out videos lately and need a bit of a breather. I have heaps of stuff in the works, including the Dead Money video that people have requested. But in the meantime, I figured it'd be a good opportunity to finally talk about something I've been meaning to for ages. My experience in the games industry, reflecting on how that whole thing went down, and what a shit show game dev is at the moment. Quick aside, but I just want to take a moment and thank everyone again who's jumped on board recently. This channel rocketed over 1,000 subscribers in a couple of days, and I appreciate it. Although I'm still going to make videos and talk about whatever I feel like regardless, it's cool to know that we've carved out a little niche here. Even if you don't
look at
agree,
Gears of
that's
War. It
also
looks so
fine.
fucking
I don't really
shitty.
want you to. These
You couldn't
videos are
pay me
food
to
for
play
thought,
this.
and if there's one takeaway from this
Fucking
stuff,
weird
it's
right-wing
important to
incel
engage with everything
cocksucker
critically.
fantasy.
It'd be nice to have a break from editing.
It's weird incel right-wing cocksucker fucking space marine fantasy. You couldn't pay me to play.
So I'll probably just check up some B-roll from various games on screen.
You know, I used to have these feelings when I was a kid, and I used to suppress them a lot.
Listen to this in the background.
I'm not talking about homosexual tendencies. I'm talking about my hatred of these games.
This isn't going to be super structured. I'll try my best to cover everything I can, but if there's something relevant, I'll try and get something up on screen. One last thing, if you're not interested in sticking around for a behind the scenes style thing, I've got 2 bits of advice for everyone watching this video. First, there are 100 times more people trying to break into the industry right now than there are jobs available. Second,
Yeah.
if you absolutely want to get into game dev, stay independent and do it yourself. Indie dev is something we won't cover here per se. While it comes with challenges of its own, it's worth it for the creative and financial freedom you'll have. It's not going to be easy, but it's better than the alternative. Trust me. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into it. As much as I would like to tell you that my time in the industry was as some bigwig creative director type that got to have entire teams under my supervision.
Nope. 2 wins tonight. Not bad when I was fucking wasted. Not a bad night. So I'm going to go to bed. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I'm tired. It is a Sunday night. My week is ending. Tomorrow I will wake up and I will walk for 5 miles, and then I will come back to you, and I will be here tomorrow morning sometime between 11 and 1 p.m., somewhere around there. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I'm going to go to bed, watch a movie or a video or something. I don't really know yet. And I love you guys. Y'all have a good night. Take care. You've been watching Skycatlive. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day, every day. Sorry, I'm a bit tired, as you can hear. And I love you guys. Thank you so much. Click on the cast face to donate. Come to the Twitch or the YouTube. Give me a like, sub, or follow. I have thousands of videos on my YouTube channel, which is reflected here. I will post these videos that I have recorded today. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to stop this recording.